More often than not, rather than having your data embedded in the same file, your HTML file in the form of an array, you'll generally be reading your data from an external source. It may be from an external file locally on in your project or on your desktop, or you may be reading it live from a database or through an API, an application programming interface. So in this example, we're going to look at how you bind data that lives in an external file to our charts. So the first thing we do is we create a new directory called data using the mkdir. Then we change directory to data, and we're going to access some data from our GitHub account. And you can do that very easily using Cloud9, using a clever little utility called wget. And that will allow you to pull in files across HTTP and download them to a particular location. In our case, it's going to download to our data directory. And there we have the data. One thing we need to make sure next is that our dashboards don't render before the data is available. There can be a lag if we're accessing from a database or across the wire. So one of the things we use is yet another library called Q. And that again was written by Mike Bostock, the creator of D3. And it allows you to defer calling a function until the data is ready. So in our case, we've downloaded and added a script reference to Q.js from the Content Delivery Network. And then we defer. We're deferring JSON content. And we refer to its location, which is, it's a file called transactions.json, and it lives in our data folder. So basically what's happening between lines 29 and 30, it says, go and get transactions.json file in the data folder and bring it back in the form of d3.json. When that's finished, when that's successful, call a method. And in our case, it's called makeGraphs. It can be whatever you call it yourself. It's whatever you refer to inside an await. So one of two things will happen. Either the data will return or we'll get an error. And we can deal with the error. We can put exception handling in there if the data fails to load in some way. But we'll assume that the data will download. And once that's done, it will appear or be injected into the transactions data parameter in our custom-made function called makeGraphs. Whatever you call the function in line 30 inside in our await must match our own custom function. After that, normal service resumes. And what I mean by that is you create a new Crossfilter object, then you create a new dimension. In our case, we're using the names. And then we group and sum based on that dimension. We then use DC object. In our case, again, we're creating a bar chart. We're binding that to a particular div in order to render that bar chart. We make sure our dimensions match our dimension, for example, created on line 34. We create our chart. Now, one thing I didn't mention until now is in order to render the chart, you call dc.renderAll. That must be called in order to render the charts. Let's test it. And there we have it, binding external data to our charts.